Such a bizarre story, but it does really go to show how these people are after your children, number one, and how they are trying to constantly separate you as a parent from that child, whether it be giving access to the state and letting the state raise your kids, or thinking that it's someone else's, like they're better suited to do that. And we're not talking about like in cases of abuse. We're just talking about normal human beings raising normal children. It's op-ed, and it's a tricky title because when you read it, it says opposite. It says children are not property, the idea that underlies right-wing campaign for parents' rights. Okay. Now I will say this. To me, the adults or the parents, their job is to preserve, you're preserving the innocence of this child, right? That's until they get obviously older. If you want to give them the tools that they can to succeed in life, being good people. And when they get to an age where they're no longer a minor, that doesn't mean you completely remove yourselves from their lives. But the idea is to set them up for success, protect them. Listen to this. And this is coming from an op-ed by some chick named Sarah Jones. Says, train up a child in the way that he should go, and when he is old, he will not depart from it. The book of Proverbs says, to certain right-wing Christians, the concept is simple. A child can be broken or stamped into shape, much like a domesticated animal. So imagine giving your kid a set of morals and ethics, definitely ones you share, and that alone is what they consider like domesticating an animal. Though all parents hope they'll pass their values on to their children, for some that hope is more of a mandate. My own parents believe that Proverbs is a word of God, and they believe too that a righteous upbringing will produce an adult in their image. Who can blame them? The idea that a child should replicate her parents does not belong only to conservative Christianity or religion at all. Well, why are you focusing on them? A proverb is common wisdom, and lately this is hard to escape. Authoritarianism is gospel to modern conservatism. Wow, that's a projection. Not to say that there aren't conservatives that are into authoritarianism, but leftists absolutely are. Nowhere is that clearer than they're calling it an assault on children. This is why, again, you read that title, but as we continue to read, let's listen in on some of this stuff. The parental rights movement is not new, but it is enjoying a resurgence. Adherents say they're protecting children from harm, broadly defined. Not actually. People are easily able to identify that. After an art teacher at a Florida charter school showed the students a picture of Michelangelo's David, parental complaints forced the principal members of Moms for Liberty call for book bans across the country. Books with LGBT content are at risk of removal. Meaning that it's the content that they're referring to often is content that has very explicit images and is not something that should be in a children's library or books that children should be reading. We've discussed that on this channel before. The architects of state bans on gender affirming care for minors. That's in other words, that's called child mutilation, is what they're defining as gender affirming care for minors. A gender cult destroys families, claimed conservative commentator Matt Walsh. The child they held as a baby and raised and gave their lives to and loved and still love becomes suddenly unrecognizable. I would rather be dead than have that happen to my kids. The real sin isn't that trans youth will suffer, but the parental grip might loosen. Conservative interest in child extends beyond a traditional hostility to LGBT people. In March, Arkansas Governor Sarah Huckabee Sanders, a Republican, signed a bill into law that makes it easier for companies to hire children under 16. More states may follow. Was that a crime? As Terry Gerstein, the director of Harvard Law and Labor and Work-Life Program that's a fake job, whatever, pointed out in New York Times, bills that would allow 14 and 15-year-olds and meatpacking plants and other dangerous jobs in Iowa as part of training programs, and 16-year-olds to take jobs at construction sites in Minnesota are under consideration. Young people working once was a thing. Many of you guys had your first jobs at 14 and 15 before that was outlawed. And then it became almost unanimous everywhere else. You couldn't start really working until you were 16. And once ago, you had people, kids, younger kids having paper routes and all that. All that stuff has been completely eliminated. The great Dr. Walter E. Williams, rest in peace, talked about this. And like letting the youngsters work. Oftentimes you get people that are going to are living in these areas with these rotten schools in the first place. And really the only place that they're going to find useful sort of a skill set is in the workplace. And unfortunately, when they use terms like child labor, right? When you talk about teenagers working, and then they always go to something just drastic, a coal mine or something like that. When oftentimes we're talking about a kid being able to mop the floor of a freaking grocery store or bring in the carts. You know what I mean? These are useful skills that a teenager certainly can learn. And I don't know if she's trying to conflate this. I don't know. Child mutilation, but yeah, one is a positive thing, and allowing young people to work, allowing a 15-year-old, for example, to work is not a problem. But what is a problem is a double mastectomy like Chloe Cole at 15. You see, those are a completely different thing. One's a very useful thing for that child, at least at minimum can be, and other is doing irreversible damage to a minor that doesn't possibly have the capacity to make those sorts of decisions. Says that this person from Harvard, I guess, noting that the bills coincide with a rise of dangerous child labor, I told you, violations. What does any of this have to do with it? Let me see. I can understand kids going hungry, but is that really the problem of a school district? Is that the problem? What are they talking about? Oh, free lunch programs and all that. Y'all need to get y'all's kids out of public education anyway. It's possible to draw a line between the remarks to push for child labor and the right to tax on trans children. There's no such thing. There's no such thing, but it goes to show how rotten these people are that they use that term so freely. They can deny them from evidence-based medical care. They can put a child to work. They can make sure a child is sheltered from dangers of serious education. When a child goes hungry, that's because a parent isn't caring for their property. And what a person does with the property is their right. All right, this person has a very twisted way of what they think is actually taking place. So the argument that she's trying to make is that basically parents see kids like they're their own property, as opposed to them, being actual parents, and that being a requirement and that being a responsibility to teach and protect and again preserve the innocence of that young child, right? Because they depend on you. They are dependent upon you. To late Christian Reconstructionist R.J. Rushdoony was a prominent advocate of Christian homeschooling. To Rushdoony, all education was religious as Clint. So this is, I guess, their way of trying to take shots at homeschooling. Interesting. And by referring to someone that existed or somebody 60 years ago. Taken to the extreme, the concept of parental rights can be dangerous. You take it to the extreme regardless, and deadly for children. Proponents like Ferris and Rushdoony before him ignore the fact. Why are you talking about people, by the way, that are back in, let's say, the 60s, when we have people making arguments right now? You don't seem to want to address those. The National Children Alliance says that over 600,000 or documented victims of abuse and neglect in 2020. That's a problem. The language of parental rights can become a license to torture. All right, I'm done with this. This person's actively strawmanning a position. And look, I told you guys before, and why I'm such an advocate of alternative forms of schooling is because these people not only feel that you don't really have a right to raise your kids as you see fit. And again, we're not talking about instances of abuse, but not only that, these people think that, let's say, the state is better suited to make those decisions. And in the event that you want to take them away from that, you're like depriving them because they feel like it's their right to raise your children, which is insane. But that's why they rally so hard against these alternative forms of schooling. Mainly because, well, they understand that this is all they got. And in the event that that changes, so much changes. The entire landscape of the country, generations changes once you stop giving access to Caesar, giving your children access to Caesar and allowing them to basically become Romans. You can't expect them not to. That's the old saying. So I guess you can make an argument there's a war against parents. But what they're really trying to do is act as if normal, reasonable, rational behavior is something that's a threat to the child. And they're entering in very dangerous territory as they continue to say and speak as if it is normal, using terms like trans kids. If you enjoyed this video and want to support other content, please become a member at ericdjuly.com. This is my own unique platform that replaced my Patreon. Our Ultra Max, which is our highest tier, gets free shipping domestically, even with Rippaverse orders, and are able to redeem the Creators Edition copy of ISOM #1. You can move up and down tiers or cancel at any time. Also visit Rippaverse.com. This is my comic book company that launched a $3.7 million campaign. We appreciate your support.